You're grinding every day. Long hours, no backup, no accountability. That ends now. The Empower Solopreneur Mastermind gives you one simple advantage: a weekly power session that turns isolation into domination. Every Friday morning on Zoom, you'll get real coaching and real feedback to make real moves. Join a group of driven professionals in a program designed for solopreneurs and people working at home. Stop getting stuck. Start scaling. Seats are limited. Lock in yours today at modernobserver.com/empower-mastermind.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And an anniversary of sorts, or not really of sorts, it just is, and that is Trump's first year. Can you think, I'll let you run with this after, but can you think of any president that's had a more consequential year than Donald J. Trump? And before I tee it up to you, can you compare Trump 2.0 to first year Trump, or first term in office Trump? So we'll let it roll. Go for it.
Yeah, the difference between Trump's first term and second term are night and day. Trump for his second term, Trump hit the ground running literally the day after the election. What didn't even wait till Inauguration Day. He was already up and running, and people were starting to negotiate with him rather than Biden. His first term...
100% correct, yes.
His first term, he didn't really get moving until September, because once he was inaugurated, he found out just how much he didn't understand about how the thing was run.
Can I just interject one thing before you let it roll? And that is, I think there was a little bit of naivete in terms of what he was really dealing with. And one of the things I think is amazingly fascinating, for me at least, is I truly believe the whole swamp thing was just a political talking point. I'm talking 2015, 2016. And I think it turned out to be reality, and he wasn't really prepared for it. And that's my little thought. Go run with it.
Yeah, I don't.
Do you agree with that, by the way?
No, I don't think it was just a talking point. I think he meant every word of it and did intend to drain the swamp. I didn't think he
knew how big it was.
Right. I don't think he realized just how deep the swamp went. And some of the
100%.
folks who were allegedly on his team were part of that deep state swamp. So he had his own people working against him.
No question about it. Yes. So first year, run with it, my friend.
Well, again, he hit the ground running immediately, not even waiting for the inauguration. If you remember Inauguration Day 2016, you had empty streets in Washington. You had people burning trash cans and attacking mailboxes in D.C., yelling about the inauguration.
Yep.
Flash forward to 2020, Inauguration Day 2025, a whole different image, because the folks who were angry that Trump won lived through 4 years of Biden-Harris and went, wait a minute, we didn't know what a good thing we had. So now, obviously you've still got protests. We see it all the time. But now you've got organized paid protesters, as opposed to people who were legitimately angry for reasons they didn't even know. Just creating.
Agreed, 100%. And I think that's an amazing point that you have. Is that I think the first go round was organic. Now, were they morons? Were some of them didn't even know what they were protesting about or up in arms about? Yes, but at least it was organic. And I think you have a very great point. Is knowing what the alternative is a hangover that's going to be with the Democrats for quite a while. Am I not correct?
I think it is. Now, that doesn't mean that the Republicans can't screw themselves up. They've got a great history
Oh,
of
no
doing
doubt.
that.
Yes.
But you take a look at the past year. Let's just take Christmas vacation. During the Biden years, what was Biden doing when he was on vacation? Absolutely nothing. He would be on the beach. There were pictures of him doing absolutely nothing. What did Donald Trump do on his Christmas vacation? Well, he met with Benjamin Netanyahu. He worked on the capture of Maduro. Donald Trump, in his first year, did not take an actual vacation. He has been working 365 days. Yeah, he took off a couple hours, during a couple of times to play golf. And the Democrats made a big deal. Oh, how dare he go off to play golf? Biden set records for days off. He ended every day at 4:00. He didn't start the next day until 10. He was gone every weekend. Trump has basically been working 365 days since he took office.
Agreed. Now, the question is, one's rhetorical, one's not. I believe, and what do you think, that Biden went from a laughable loser, whatever you want to call it, to a disgraced president. And I also believe, and that's kind of rhetorical, that increasingly Obama is falling, and not the laughable loser, but a disgraced presidency. Your thoughts?
Yeah, because Joe Biden was essentially the third term of Barack Obama. He had the same staff people,
Yes.
the same folks behind the scenes. And we saw just what it looked like when you put forward the Obama policies without the veneer of people being able to yell, "Oh, you're a racist."
Yeah, no, well, hold on. I think it's even bigger than that. I think Obama had to keep his natural inclinations in check because he was directly responsible. Those videos with the 20-year girl gone wild, whatever. Well, it was Obama gone wild because he had no restraint and he was really what he wanted to do. I truly believe that.
Yeah, again, I don't know how much direct control Obama had, but it was certainly the same people behind the scenes. They were still taking advice from him. So, yes, he had influence, and we saw how well that went. But you also, and we'll talk a little more about this in a later segment, you also had the rise of rampant anti-Semitism. And we just learned now, because Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, has come out with his memoirs. And it turns out that when Kamala Harris interviewed him for the vice presidential spot, she actually had the audacity to ask him, "Are you a double agent for Israel?"
Well, that's the face of the new Democratic Party. I mean, that's a big part of the foundation. That's just not by accident. And I actually think that Obama was a major contributor to that.
But which is why Trump 2.0 has been so successful, because he stands in stark contrast to this. He did better for his second term among black males. He did better among Jewish males. He did better among males in general. He did better among Hispanics of both genders. So you really did see less of a divided nation in Trump 2025 than you did in Trump 2017.
Yes. Okay, I would agree with that. I think there were, a lot of accomplishments, but I'm most intrigued about his impact, that is Trump's impact on business as usual, incompetency, but that's not really what I'm after, is the whole gravy train of the Democratic Party, the gravy train of the global elites, NATO, you name it, America being taken advantage of, America not asserting itself. The list can go on. I'm not going to bore you, but your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
that digs up.
It
at least for the time being.
has been a massive impact. I mean, first of all, and I think honestly, the thing that really illustrates it best was when the Venezuelan opposition leader last week gave her Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump. And the Nobel Committee has been up in arms over it ever since. How dare these awards are not transferable. She can't do this. She did it. You saw economist after economist, especially European and liberal economists, yelling tariffs were going to cause skyrocketing inflation. They were going to destroy the economy. And yet a year later, they haven't. And in fact...
Yeah, but it's bigger than... But that goes back to actually Reagan, okay? And why do I bring that up? Is because during those debates, the same as George Wallace used to call them, pointed head intellectuals, they really know nothing. And they've overseen the demise of Western culture and economies. The whole thing that's going on in Davos. These are the same geniuses that have pretty much destroyed Western Europe, okay, except for the new Europe. Not a big Rumsfeld fan, but he did have one accurate terminology, and that's Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia, countries like that. But Germany, England, France, they're almost jokes trying to assert themselves. They couldn't take over Rhode Island.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not just Europe. We're seeing the same thing in Canada. And it has destroyed, Canada has essentially destroyed what used to be called Pax Americana. The North American continent was always unified, and they're essentially being run as a communist country. I have sources within Canada who are actually terrified that they are heading into a civil war. And there was one of the folks I know that lives up in Canada shared this amazing video of a woman who is talking about how Trump has turned around and proven that all of the European management of countries, how they viewed economics, how they viewed how to run government, Trump has blatantly showed how flawed it was and how damaging it was. And now they can't deny it because he's come out and
No. Doctor, that is a point that needs to be highlighted because that's one of Trump's biggest. You are spot on. It's shedding light on all the theoretical bullshit and all the misguided liberal policies. There's no turning away. No, there's no turning away. It's in the light of day, and I think it's harder for elites in Canada and other places like Western Europe to put that genie back in the bottle. Your thoughts?
It is more difficult, but you're also seeing in other parts of the world, it's starting to have even bigger effects. I think the largest one we're seeing is what's going on in Iran now. The Iranian people literally renamed streets after Donald Trump. The Iranian regime has been planning how to flee the country. All because of Donald Trump's example. The folks there are saying, oh, wait, no, there is a better way. We can do this. They've publicly asked for help from Donald Trump. You have, again, down in South America, the Venezuelan people, the Venezuelan opposition forces say, yes, thank you, Donald Trump. You saw, we actually just over the past 2 weeks saw conflicts in Africa come to Donald Trump and say, would you please mediate our dispute? Trump did.
I agree. No, you're 100% spot on, but my only point of contention is, yeah, that's all great, like Iran and Africa and everything, but I think the bigger ramification or impact of Trump is, yes, he's done all that, but when you're talking about right in our backyard, the elites that have had control of Western economies, society, governance to some degree, are now like being exposed like cockroaches, for lack of a better terminology or reference. I think that, the people, their hold on what you talk about Canada, yeah, Western Canada, it's not going to happen right now, but there's a big push to secede.
Yes.
And I think you're going to find that throughout Western society.
Yeah, you're seeing a massive reorganization, and the folks who have been in power, both in front of and behind the scenes, are panicking. We've actually seen, take Hollywood, for example. We have seen Hollywood make a major pushback against Paramount, and in particular CBS, because CBS News is now calling out their bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and you kind of put your finger right on it, as usual. Reagan had an impact, but not this kind of paradigm shift. You have even mainstream media, for their very survival, basically need to or have adjusted, not to a 10th degree, but have adjusted because there's a new sheriff in town, and you see that in Davos. That look at Biden, and something had been a year ago or 2 years ago, whatever. He was there basically the weak man out. He wasn't showing up
yes.
at photo shoots. He had no leverage. He was a joke.
Yes, and you're seeing, you've got Davos going on right now. Trump is over there. And I think what illustrates it best was something that actually happened early. I'm not sure if it was late yesterday or earlier today, but Trump was in one of their clubhouses, essentially holding court, meeting with other world leaders, and Gavin Newsom is over in Davos. And when Trump was holding court and having these meetings, they barred the door, and Newsom tried to get in, and they told him, no, you can't come.
I'm glad you brought him up, because it's really interesting. He was on he had an off-the-cuff comment, almost seditious, like basically saying, oh, Europe has to have a backbone. And that's really at the crux of this, because yes, Trump has made some mistakes. He has, a presentation problem at times, although I think it's much better than it was. But you have Democrats kind of rooting for the other side. I mean, he's going over to Europe, and you have Newsom basically saying, oh, they got to have a backbone. It's outrageous. And the competency level, not just because I'm biased, I am biased, between the Democrats and the Republicans, but Trump in particular, there's not even any comparison. I mean, Gavin Newsom on the world stage? Are you kidding me?
The fact of the matter is, even the Democratic Party has come out and said there is no way that Gavin Newsom is going to be our nominee for president in 2028. They've already decided he's going to be stopped because
Could you you need to clarify that. You need to clarify that because I think that's important. What exactly do you mean by that? I mean, overtly, subvertly, how's that happen?
The DNC is already starting to explore backing other candidates to fund in primaries against Gavin Newsom. Basically they've said what we've been saying on this podcast about him for a couple of years. All any Republican is going to have to do, whether it's Vance or Rubio or whoever ends up with the nomination, all they're going to have to do is go, this is what Gavin Newsom did to California. Do you want him doing the same to the United States?
One thing about that. You're 100% correct. And the thing that I find very interesting is it's not static. With Newsom, California's demise is accelerating. I'm talking right now. Corporations, people, billionaires, fleeing deficits. And so he's getting in a worse position than he was.
And what's even funnier is that now he's fighting his own people trying to slow this down because he knows it's going to kill his political career. He has actually been out there campaigning against California's wealth tax proposal because he knows that is going to demolish the state, and if it does go through, there's not a donor in the party that's going to support him.
I would agree. The only thing I would say that's a problem for the Democrats, and thank God, is that they really have a very weak bench. You know, people talk about Josh Shapiro. He's a lightweight too. Sorry. I mean, yeah, compared to Kamala and Gavin, he's like a superhero. But he's cast for milquetoast as well with that whole anti-Semitic Israeli agent thing. Yeah, he waits. He doesn't say anything until now.
Yeah,
what a mensch.
That was my first that was my first response too. If I had been in his position, I would have told Kamala Harris right then and there, okay, one, get out. I wouldn't be your vice president after that comment if you begged. Two, I'm going to go out and make sure that not a single Jew votes for you.
Yeah, and worse than that, he campaigned for that idiot.
Yes.
Yes, he did. Okay. So, yeah, he's finished. And we can move on from that, but I think it is very interesting. But you do, last bit, touching on the Democratic Party, I find it amazingly interesting that the corruption, every party's corrupt. I get it. We don't have to even go down that road. But you look at Omar, she was worth $35,000 last year. $35,000. That's like whatever. Okay, not much. And now she's worth like what, $35 million? Pelosi. You look at the corruption in Minnesota, in California, now moving to Maine, a state near you. It's just mind-boggling. And this party is a bunch of grifters. Essentially, that's how they make their living. They never worked in a real company or anything. What are you, crazy? They wouldn't know what to do.
No, the corruption is amazingly widespread, and this is what we have been referring to as the deep state. But it started with Doge. When Doge started cutting funds to these useless programs, well, the main reason those programs were actually in place were not to benefit the American people. It was ways to funnel money into these corrupt officials and to also fill slush funds to keep them in office. Well, you've seen the Corporation of Public Broadcasting is gone. They voted to dissolve themselves now that they didn't have it. Now they weren't getting the government money.
Jim, I have to ask you a question. On that. I mean, this is almost for my own edification. I was a little surprised at that. You're telling me I mean, I know it's true. I mean, I'm not questioning what happened. I thought they'd go on their merry way and just do more fundraising and sell more handbags and stuff. But basically, they just pulled the plug. That to me was like unbelievable. I really didn't expect that to happen.
Well,
I really didn't. Maybe I'm stupid, but whatever.
no, you're not stupid, but it's a bit of splitting hairs. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting is not PBS. PBS is the one that had been doing all that fundraising that we've been seeing.
Okay, I get it.
And they're still doing it. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting only existed for one purpose, and it was to take government money and disperse it to different PBS stations. That was all they did.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't raise money. They didn't serve any real purpose. And quite frankly, PBS could be distributing funds on their own. They didn't need the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Something that I just recently learned, it's surprising. You might have known this because you are a bit of a historian, particularly when it comes to Lyndon Johnson. But the entire reason that public broadcasting exists is because the Johnson administration wanted to have a propaganda machine that could reach rural America where major networks did not have reach.
100% correct. 100%. And it's so funny. You look at that mission. Yeah, okay, 70 years ago, 60-something years ago, I got it, kind of. And even back then, I used to listen to NPR. It wasn't that. It was okay. I'm not talking in the 60s. I'm talking, we used to talk about wait, don't tell me, and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, the kind of wheels would come off the axles here. But you're 100%. And the other thing is, where's the mission? You kind of have cell phones now. You have smartphones. You have all this stuff. Internet. You really don't need someone to disseminate information to the rural masses. And
right,
by the way, farmers aren't listening to that anyway. At least nowadays.
The rural America has better ways to get their information. And ironically, there was a push under the Biden administration to get rid of AM radio. And yet AM radio reaches more people in rural America than it does in urban America. So I'm sure
some of the AM radio. Go ahead. Sorry.
The entire focus of the Democratic Party from Johnson to now shifted from, well, we need to reach rural America and make sure they're informed, to, we don't need them at all. The Democratic Party has become so focused on the coasts that they've forgotten the rest of America.
Without any question, no doubt. And speaking of grand strategies, you look at Davos, and we need to kind of focus on this as an individual topic. Greenland. I mean, do you think any Democrat is capable of even thinking strategically in that direction, and even trying to orchestrate and design a strategy to work out some kind of arrangement? You think Gavin Newsom would have any clue about that? He wouldn't even know what the only thing he'd care about is global warming, and that's about it for Greenland. Your thoughts?
I have to be. I've always understood why Trump wanted us to have control of Greenland. It's a strategic position, particularly against Russia. There's a huge wealth of mineral rights there that are needed for industry, needed for solar panels and batteries. So, I mean, even the Democrats should be in favor of us being able to produce that. But even quite frankly, about 5 hours ago, I was saying Trump needs to stop talking about Greenland. He wants to put a strategy together, great. He wants to open negotiations, great, whatever. He's got to stop talking about it because it caused markets to fall. And honestly, 24 hours ago, I would have said Greenland could be the reason that the Republicans lose the midterms. Now that there's actually
100% agree.
now that there's
Go ahead.
actually a framework in place for negotiations to move forward between the United States and NATO. Again, Newsom yelling NATO has to stand up to him, and NATO went, "No, we've got a deal. We're good."
I think it's just. Go ahead. Sorry.
It just shows how out of touch with the rest of the world Gavin Newsom is.
Yeah, it also shows, at least to me, when you have a business person, someone that's actually worked for a living, knows strategy, knows long range thinking, versus politicians, and in particular, I'm just sorry to say, the Democratic Party establishment, who people like Schumer, you can have a whole list, you could go on for hours, who never really worked outside of government. That's just how it is. They don't know strategy. They don't know anything.
And
it's amazing that they got to where they are. Go ahead.
In all honesty, as aggravated as I was getting at Trump over Greenland, in retrospect, looking at, and very little of the framework has been announced yet. I expect over the next 24 hours, we'll know more about what the framework actually looks like. But in retrospect, looking at it, it does fit into what I have been saying all along. If you read The Art of the Deal, everything Trump does is predictable. And this was right out of The Art of the Deal. He brought everything to the brink. He was willing to, let people think he would blow things up. Because even he had said, well, no, we haven't taken force off the table. I don't honestly believe now that force was ever on the table. I think all of this was his negotiating, and now they're moving to a place where they can actually have talks.
Agreed. I think it puts leaders, I should say, like from the French, the British. By the way, the British, he hasn't even answered any. It used to be the special relationship. He hasn't answered any of their correspondence since he's been in office, like for meetings and stuff. Sending a signal is my point. But like Carney in Canada, I mean, it just weakens. He's weakening his opposition as well. So it is quite interesting. And he's weakening. I'm not so sure with our education. Go ahead.
He's weakening, their position. But if you really look at all of the different things that Trump has done, even going back to his first term, forcing them to start spending more on defense, different agreements they've been able to put forward just in the past year. NATO is actually stronger now than it was in 2015 because of Trump. So if let's say, all these people were yelling, oh, Trump's going to, break up NATO and go to why would he strengthen NATO if his intention was to go to war with it or to break away with it? No, he's actually helping rebuild NATO to a viable ally, which it hasn't been in a long time.
It hasn't been that way since maybe the 80s. Yes, I agree with you 100%. Well, Dr. Lopkins, very interesting. And my last question for you is, though, if we had an actually educated populace, which there's many reasons why we kind of don't, I think the impact would be even greater. But because we're so dummied down, I think a lot of people are still not getting it. But I do believe overall it is egg on your face to the Democratic Party. It just makes them look increasingly more ridiculous. Your final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Trump has stood up against every attack they've thrown at him. He himself has said, if the Republicans don't win the midterms, they're going to impeach me again.
Which they will.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And yet, when you take a look, let's just take a look at the basics. Inflation down, GDP skyrocketing compared to a year previously.
The rest of the world. Yeah.
Inflation has been gotten under control. You're seeing the markets, even though we've had days where there was panic, overall, it's record after record. Yes, we're seeing turbulence in the job market, but a lot of that has less to do with politics and more to do with technological change, which he's also trying to get under control, where every state was trying to pass AI laws. Trump finally said, no, we are going to put a federal framework in place. We cannot have a patchwork of laws, 50 different sets of regulations for something that is literally going to reshape the global economy.
I agree, but I think you're actually 100% wrong, Dr. Lopkin, because you're wrong. You're not looking at the big picture, because the Dems are focused on the real issue, and that is transgender sports. See, once again, you missed the ball, Doctor. There you go. Well, that concludes another. You go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I missed the boat on that one completely. You caught me.
You screwed up, Lopkin. Your doctor's, your PhD is going to get revoked. Anyway, Dr. Lopkin, great show. We'll be back next week. Our listeners can contribute to the whole process, can't they?
Yes, they can. Let us know what you have to say. Go to xvadio.com/connect. You can also message us at the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Radio at the Carnivore Radio website, xvadio.com, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
See you next week, Doctor.
We'll see you then.